Hey, welcome to the Right Now Writers Group. Here we are meeting every Wednesday as we talk about our writing. We try to get some work done and we check in once a week with wherever we're at in the storytelling process. Now, I've invited other writers from the community to come join us, whether or not they're going to join us partway or into the stream. You are all encouraged to partake in the conversation. I would love to know where you're at in your writing. What's the goal for today or this week? And what type of progress are we going to be making? So once again, welcome. I'm Kauffman and we are starting right into it. So I'm going to be pulling up. We have a Soul here with us.
Hey guys.
Welcome, Soul. And we are hopefully going to make some progress today. So as I think about like the writing progress, you know that I made a lot of success with Last Scarecrow. And I know you've had success as well. Do you want to just introduce yourself a little bit for anyone who doesn't know you?
Yeah. Okay, so I'm Soul. Right now I'm primarily working on fan fictions. While I'm finishing off my writing degree. Last week I was working on a crossover fan fiction between Harry Potter and One Piece. I actually got that finished on Monday and finished posting it, and it's 12 full chapters on an archive of our own, An Unusual Student. It actually turned out pretty decent, and I might have a potential collab with another writer for another story eventually.
That's exciting. Who doesn't love a Harry Potter One Piece mashup? Oh man. And like for me, you guys know that clearly I just finished the rough draft of Last Scarecrow. So on these writing sprints like this week and next week, I'm kind of asking myself like what my writing sprints are going to be looking like. I mean, I guess over the next couple months, but at least for this week and next week, I'm doing a lot more planning on my end. I thought about maybe working on an article. I get so behind at work developing my like writing articles, but I haven't decided. I know I have like a laundry list of things to do in preparation for my second draft before I actually start editing the draft itself. So I'm curious, do you have a process when you're working on different drafts of your book? Like when you go from like, do you have like specific drafts you go to, or like what's your process?
Let's see. When I was writing Burning Ember, and I kind of took the same approach for Shifting Flame.
And just to clarify, Burning Ember came out in June.
It came out on June 13th.
Published in June 13th.
Under the name of The Pirates Burning Ember by Hollow. It is currently available on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles. It's just ebook right now. But I'm working on getting a physical copy available.
Ooh,
primarily what I did is I wrote the book first. I made sure I had the first draft done. I had all of the major scenes that I needed. This is a little bit of a spoiler for Shifting Flame. But by the time it comes out, people may not remember this. But by the time when I got to the middle of the book, that was the last part that I needed to finish for that book because I already knew the ending. And so I made sure that the first draft had the first conflicts, that the first part had ended in the major conflict that it got. The second part, the middle of it, had a massive conflict that actually had a huge twist that really threw the main character for a loop. Threw Kasai for a loop, I should say, because it is a dual point of view. The end of the second part, it was another twist, but not nearly as large, or at least I didn't think it was. But then again, it's my book, so. The ending of the book, I'm still kind of working on it because I'm trying to figure out how to word it correctly. But once that's done, I'm actually going to go through because I'll have every part that I need, but then I actually get to start going in and editing. And then that's when I start adding in things that are missing. I start changing the wording. I check, hey, is this part actually how I wanted it to be? Or did I really mean for it to go a different way? And if I change it, am I going to have to change the rest of the book? So I don't start thinking about that until the second draft. Burning Ember went through 5 total drafts before it got published. And the first draft was I think 130,000 words. The final draft was 148,000 when it was done.
Oh, so you ended up adding more words to it then by the final draft.
Oh yeah, but the draft right before the published draft, sorry, was like 152,000. So I did actually cut some out, just not nearly as much.
I think that's a challenge that I'm going to be faced. So last Scarecrow, my original goal was 90,000 when I was very early on. The rough draft ended at 140,000. And then by the time I get to a final draft, my goal is to get to 100. Simply because the conventions of the fantasy genre, especially for first books of series, from what I've learned, averages tend to be about 90 to 120K to be accessible to readers.
Yeah.
And I think it's doable because I have a habit of describing things, and I'll have a better idea once I go through the second draft and I go through the whole process. But I think if I hit a point where there's like a part where there's like every point feels like it's critical, then what I might do is I might take out a chapter or portion of it and then save that development for a later book.
Yeah,
if I do get to that point. By the way, actually, I just want to real quick welcome ML. Welcome to the stream. Hello, everyone. I'm trying to finish editing a novel. Well, ML, we feel your pain. We're there right there with you, my friend. And Atomic, good to see you in here, my friend. Welcome. Let's see. Nil, you doing beta readers? That's a great question. So alpha and beta readers. So I think alpha and beta readers are absolutely critical when getting feedback on our stories. Usually the alpha and the beta reader is the first stage, the first step, right? When we get after the book is finished with either the rough or sometimes the second draft. And then we need to get feedback, right? We're like, do these parts of the story work? Is it clear? Is it concise enough? Obviously, there's going to be errors, or probably going to be spelling problems, and that's fine. It's more kind of like a developmental critique, similar to what I'm doing on the Saturday stream.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a first gut intake critique. Am I going to do it for Last Scarecrow? No. I'm actually going to be skipping the alpha and beta reading phase because I feel confident in the story that I'm telling, combined with how the rough draft came out. And I will be getting feedback from friends and family. So I don't always normally recommend only getting alpha and beta readers from friends and family, simply because they might not give you the right level of criticism.
Yeah, they're a little biased.
Exactly, right? But I think I feel confident enough in Last Scarecrow's journey in the book itself that I'm going to instead go through the revision process. I will be hiring an editor, or maybe trading. Maybe if I find another, since I'm an editor, maybe I'll find an editor to trade books with. But I'm going to get an editor, so that's not a phase that I'm going to skip, but I'm going to skip the alpha beta reader phase. When I get to the last draft, I might do advanced copies. So like I might do that, but that's my plan. And every book's different. So like when I get to later books in the series, that will probably be different. But I think because Scarecrow is a very live stream formatted book, since I've been writing on the live stream, I feel pretty confident in its in the quality of it so far. Could that change in 6 months? Sure. But you know what? I'm what's today, like 220 days in, so this is where we're at right now. Let's see, ML, you're like, I use an outline to write. I draft each chapter as I write. I have Grammarly running as I write the draft. Good. Then at the end of the first draft, I run the document through Edit GBT, then Pro Writing Aid. That's good. So that's definitely a really good, like, those are some really good resources for writers to use, right? To be able to help with the editing, like some of the technical stuff of it. Absolutely agree. I think for a lot of us as unpublished writers, or even if you've only published a few books before, we need to find every free resource possible. Right? Oh, yeah. Because when we get to the point where we need to either hire a professional editor or a cover design artist, so remember, people don't buy your book if the cover doesn't attract them. That's where the money should go for book budgets, is my theory.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm definitely going to second that. The first book cover that I got, I spent $30 on that. My God, I regret that so much. It turned out to
Really?
be terrible. I mean, when I first saw it, it wasn't half bad. But then I got some advice on it, and yeah, no, it had too much that was just terrible. I ended up creating my book cover myself, which it's not the best one out there. But for what it is, it's not half bad. It shows what the book is. It doesn't really give anything away. It has elements that exist in the book, but for something that I made on Canva without actually paying anything, no, it is actually not half bad. And then as for an editor, I will admit, real quick, I looked on Readsy for an editor, and I'm not saying they shouldn't charge this. I understand that is what they're doing for a job. I can't afford $1,200 minimum.
And that's a lot, especially for like, if we're not making money from the book yet, especially if we're publishing like our first, second, or third book, it's like we got to be able to keep our costs down, but still get the book out. And I think for a lot of writers, if you hit a point where like, hey, I'm not going to publish it because I don't have the money to pay for it, I would say try to find the cheap ways or the free ways to just get that first book published. I'm of the mindset you can always come out with a second edition later on.
Oh, yeah.
Now, what a lot of published authors recommend is that you save up money for a book budget, and then you invest that with the plan to recoup that investment from book sales. That's what I've seen from some like marketing experts saying. Let's see. And then ML, you're saying, and then I start getting beta readers. Yeah. So it looks like you go through the beta reader phase after Grammarly and Pro Writing Aid. Sometimes likes to battle. Every single like editing software will sometimes give you different suggestions. I'm like, yeah, suggestions. Let's keep that in mind. They're all suggestions. Let's see. Cool process. Let the chat know if you're looking. Absolutely, Neil. Thank you so much. What I will do, because I'm going to include you guys in this editing process as I go through it, I'm going to let the community know when I start looking for ARC readers, because I will be looking for ARC readers. Absolutely. Atomic, like alpha and beta readers should be from your targeted market. Yes, absolutely. Atomic, that deserves a... There we go. If you are writing a fantasy book and you are getting a reader who likes reading memoirs and is not fiction, they could absolutely give you feedback, but they're not going to be aware of genre conventions. And that's so important. I know something that's with some of the authors I've had on, I know having sensibility readers is a thing. I think also like being aware of, am I writing characters that might offend somebody? If the point of the character is to offend somebody, that's different. But if the point is not to offend somebody, I think sometimes we can write things and not be aware that they may be perceived in a different way.
Oh, yeah.
And another reason alpha and beta readers are very important.
I'll actually use an example for that so people kind of understand what you're meaning with that. Earlier, I actually wrote a new character for a new fan fiction that I'm writing, and they have dark skin. Okay. And my first thought was, how in the world am I going to describe this without touching upon, God, not cliche, but offensive descriptions? Okay. Because ages ago, I once saw somebody ask this on a writing group, how can I describe dark skin without describing it as food? And it's stuff like that you want to get sensitivity readers for. That writing an LGBT character if you're not LGBT yourself, writing a different culture when that's not yours. That's what people want. When people want a sensitivity reader, is when they're afraid they're going to be portraying that kind of thing that they're not a part of in a bad light. Now, I mean, granted, there's actually a lot of times you're not going to do that. It's not all that often it happens, but there are some people who are unfortunately very ignorant. And it does slip through the cracks. I've seen that in a few books that eventually got taken down because of that.
Yeah, I think that's a good call out. I think that's absolutely a good call out. And I think that's literally the point. I would say a little bit more beta readers. So you're getting feedback from like a wider range of people who are not friends or family. Yeah, absolutely agreed. And then let's see, by the way, Lynn, welcome. You're saying join genre groups and find editors there. that is really great advice. You can generally find edits around $200 to $400. That's amazing, right? So especially as an author writer who's trying to keep costs down, being able to find an edit for a full book between that price range is incredible. Facebook has a lot of great groups on there. And I think there's so many different avenues to go. It was interesting. I put up a poll for editing services because I was kind of curious what editors in the market charged. I did it a couple weeks ago, and I was like, okay, what do editors charge for, let's say, a normal edit? It may be, we have developmental, copy, and line editing were the three that I phrased. I was just curious to see how people responded. I put it up on two social media platforms, Facebook and Threads. I probably got about a little over 100 people responded. When I averaged the price ranges I got from most people who said they were professional editors, I would say low end, I probably had about maybe 5 to 10 who priced edits for, let's just say, an average book of maybe 50K to 100K. Let's just say somewhere in that average. For, we'll just say, an average edit, maybe a mix of developmental, copy, or line editing. I know they're vastly different experiences, but as an average, I would say low end people were saying 400 to 600 range. Middle end was about 900 to 1600 range. And then high end was about 2 to 3,000 range. And I know I got a bunch of different references. I know one of the references that I got was the what was that? The Freelance Editorial Association. I was like, don't know the credibility of it or not. It could be the main thing for freelancers, or it could be something different. But they listed all the ranges for all the different editing services. So I think what it just comes down to to doing your research, right? That's really what it is. And then knowing what your budget is and trying to get as cheap of an option as you can.
Oh yeah.
Let's see. LeMay, welcome. Let's see. Emma, I use Git covers for novel cover and Canva for my novella cover. Well, that's awesome. What is Git covers? Is that so? It sounds like that's like a professional like cover design service.
I've heard of that.
That's kind of interesting. But I mean, Canva's a great resource for those of you who need like very cheap. Canva's free, right? Or is it a low cost?
Canva is completely free. However, they do have a lot of premium options.
Okay, that's what it is. I think I use
$30 a month.
I'm not surprised. It's some type of subscription. I used Canva, I think, for a couple months very early on in my YouTube journey, and then I switched to Photoshop about 10 years ago. But you're paying money. It's a monthly subscription, so and I do recognize that. Let's see. Courtney, welcome. The way my disability is set up doesn't allow for saving up. Oh, and right. And like, that's another thing, right? If we have life circumstances that are preventing us from actually being able to save up money, that's another factor we have to take into consideration, right? I would just rather that we get our books out there. We take it through as many parts of the process as we're able to, as compared to letting the lack of a budget limit us from ever putting our stuff out there. Hey, what's up, Eli? Welcome. Let's see. My writer friend works editing essays and college papers, so she then gives me feedback. That's incredible. And I think in your network, if you have somebody in your network who is a good, like, who has some type of writing expertise or some writing background, that's such a win, right? Let's see, another recommendation. Oh, if you're needing like an alpha beta read or an edit, go trade with somebody else who also needs an alpha beta read or an edit who's in the same genre.
Yeah.
I'm always like, I think there's always ways to go about it for free options, but you just have to do the research. And like, I think Lynn mentioned, you have to just find the right groups out there who could give you what you're looking for. Hey, what's up, John? Welcome, my friend. Let's see, Lynn, indie cover artist group on Facebook is good. Ooh, I'll have to check that out. So indie cover artist group, cover artist. Awesome. I'll check that out, Lynn. That's a great reference. I think whatever groups we can find where we can help make the process easier and or cheaper are always a win. And ML, you're saying Git covers is part of Miblart. Miblart? So do you know what Mibble art is? Or is that just me?
No, I don't
Mibble
recognize
art.
that.
Mibble art, oh, book cover design services. Book cover design
Mm.
services for self-publishing authors, photo manipulated cover design, illustrations book. Okay. It's cover design. Perfect. Yeah, and I feel like there's so many services out there. I was like, if I'm looking for like a cover design artist, I'm like, I'd probably start looking for a graphic designer, but then I would be like, okay, well, maybe I just go towards a cover design service. I think my expectations that would change would be probably their awareness and their insight for what cover design conventions are working in this day and age. I remember on what was it? I think so. It was like 2 or 3 weeks ago. I had another published author on one of my podcasts, and they were talking about like the publishing process. I had a publishing expert on, which was super cool, and they were talking about it, and they're showing how like cover design conventions change every single year. So the things that readers are looking for and clicking on, or like the things that are attracting readers, might be different this year than it was last year, and that could be little things from color design, font choice, layout for your specific genre. I was like, I found that really fascinating.
Yeah, and it's amazing how different it is, because I mean, a mystery is going to look so different than a horror, which is going to look so different from an adventure, which is going to look so different from a romance. I mean, it is insane sometimes seeing how different it is.
I think if I was really going to analyze, I think what I would do, I'd go into my local bookstore, I would go to my genre, and I would just keep pulling out books, especially look at top bestsellers and see what are the styles and font choices of things that are working based on what people are actually like, based off bestseller status, because bestseller status is showing that people are clearly spending money with their wallets. If people are spending money, that's showing that the market is clearly making a decision.
Way back in one of my classes, I think either early this year or late last year, my teacher, one of my teachers actually told us, when it comes to book covers, because he covered this like for like 2 minutes in his lecture, you want to pay attention to covers, but you do not want to copy them.
Yeah, which I could agree with.
I didn't understand it then until I actually started making my own cover, and then it's like, oh, I get what he means. Yeah, look at the covers that are similar to yours, but if you do the same exact thing, they're not going to stand out.
Completely agree with that. It's kind of like, and I take it the same way for like what I do with videos and media and anything you put out there. Analyze the market, analyze what works, and then make it your own.
Oh yeah.
What we end up seeing a lot of time is people end up copying exact styles of what famous big celebrities, YouTubers, creators are doing, but they don't make it their own. They just copy the style. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but they don't become known for anything because they're copying a pre-existing style, and that translates the same with authors and book designs, I'm sure.
Some designs, kind of with everything too. I mean, music,
I know.
book covers.
Well, yeah, because we're so like influenced by what we see on our social media feeds.
Yeah.
By the way, Backwoods, welcome, my friend. Fiverr is a good resource for editing, covers, and marketing. Wide variety of experience and pricing, so it's competitive. Absolutely. I have a profile on Fiverr. What I've learned from Fiverr from the past just like 3 to 4 months of just researching on it is you can get freelancers of all skill levels and all ranges on there.
Oh yeah.
So I think it's, once again, it just comes down to doing your research. I think what works well for Fiverr is that you have a higher level of guarantee with money, at least from the buyer standpoint, because it's done through a well-known, reputable company. Something that I did not like though, as a freelancer on there, is that they charge a 20% fee from what freelancers make. And it's a 2-month waiting, not 2 month. It's a 2-week waiting period to receive anything that you make on there. I was like, well,
yeah, I mean, you can use the funds you make to buy services immediately, but yeah, no, to actually cash it out, yeah, it's got that waiting period. It makes sense to make sure everything's legit and set up and everything, but yeah, no, it is annoying. I've used Fiverr myself and I love it. I'm actually looking forward to going back once I get my degree and actually getting some freelance stuff started. But yeah, no, that is pretty annoying.
Yeah. Let's see. Lynn, you're saying book cover for you and rocking book covers are large sites with a large amount of price ranges. So book cover for you and rocking book covers. Definitely good recommendations for any of you out there who are looking for cover design like websites. Both of those great recommendations. Book cover for you and rocking book covers. Maybe I'll do a live stream on book cover designer theory at some point in the future. I feel like maybe I need to bring on somebody, an expert who actually does book cover design. That could actually be a really fun stream. I'm gonna write
not just
down.
Fun, but also highly informative, and maybe help some people create some good book covers themselves if they have to the first time.
I think when I say fun, I think for me, like any type of interview and conversation for me is fun because I'm learning and I feel like I get to further explore things that I'm already passionate about. But definitely from like an audience perspective, I'm like, I like to bring on people who we can make sure that we're delivering value to a community who are like, we're trying to figure out how to do this for cheap, right? Like we're all broke artists here. So like, let's figure out how to do it, right? Let's see. Courtney, you're like, I think I need to get over my perfectionist to get to the published part. She says, well, on chapter 12 of the first draft. Well, you know what? Everyone's at their own, everyone's in their own race, Courtney. Like totally don't get down on yourself. I thought for 20 to 25 years of my life that I was a failure as a writer because I didn't have any published books or any acclaimed scripts that were produced. Only to realize when I started this journey last year, when I'd quit my job to go full-time on this writing venture, that I had spent the better part of the last 25 years of my life practicing the craft of writing, because now I feel confident in what I'm doing. But during that time, I really thought that I was a failure. So I think everyone has their own journey. I think just to be realistic with what your expectations and your goals are. Rough draft should just be fun anyways. I'm of the mindset, like, rough drafts, like, make mistakes, have fun, make it 1 trillion words, make it 10 words, do whatever feels best for the story, and just enjoy that part of the process.
As long as the rough draft has the basic necessities as your story, that's all that's required. That's all that should be in your rough draft at a minimum. Anything beyond that is just gravy.
Yeah, and I mean, like, you can always go back and fix things. Now, of course, the more planning and prioritization and stuff you put into the rough draft, the easier you make later drafts, of course. But what I see so much, and I see this so often with so many unpublished writers, is so many of them start these really long series, right? They plan out really, really epic, great stories. But then, and they get partway into the rough draft. Maybe they get all the way to it. Maybe they get near the end, but then they stop for a period of time because life gets in the way.
Yeah.
And I think I try to get to the point of like, okay, so for unpublished writers, I would rather that you get to the end of a draft, enjoy it, set it aside, and then just come back to it. It's like life's going to get in the way for everyone, right? Especially if we're doing writing as like a part-time hobby. Like, it's all about figuring out the consistency.
And I will say, for my own book, I set down Burning Ember for, I think, 3 weeks after I actually finished the first draft, and I set it down for 3 weeks, and I started shifting flame because I knew what was going to happen. And then after 3 weeks, I went back to Burning Ember, and I was able to work on it so much better because the first draft was done. I had given myself a break. And when I went back, yeah, I had still been working within the same series, but it was a different book. And I was able to put things in there that needed to be in there that weren't there before, or change things as necessary. And it made it funner.
It kind of shows just how far the stories can develop from what we write in the rough draft to the end stage final draft. I've kind of said that with like Last Scarecrow, right? Like, I have all the core concepts of the story. Could a lot of elements change? Sure. But I enjoyed the heck out of the process, let me tell you. By the way, Lynn has a really good call out. If you're doing ebooks, make sure the covers look good in thumbnails.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. You have to also think, if people are buying books, the likelihood of them probably purchasing on their mobile phone is probably high. And then it's like, will it stand out against 100 other cover designs? But I'm also used to doing all my like content creation and YouTube stuff and looking at little tiny thumbnails. Like that's something that I completely agree with. Let's see, Courtney, like every cover is looking the same lately or in my category. It's because a lot of genre conventions and a lot of bestsellers use a lot of similar formats, and a lot of probably cover designs or formatting are probably very similar or maybe used as a similar like trends would be my guess. I hate them, so I get the ebooks. So I don't have to work. Courtney, I love that. That cracks me up. ML, even the color of the covers is important. Absolutely.
Yes.
Everything about the cover is important. From the way everything is structured on there, from the font choice to the coloring to which elements that you put on there, which characters, which like every single thing is important.
I will say myself, I have found the color to be the first thing I notice on a cover. If I am looking for an adventure story, I'm always looking for bright, bold, eye-catching colors such as reds, blacks, dark grays, maybe golds, like really like bright oranges and browns. Those are what I associate with adventure stories myself. And so if I see that color, it's going to catch my eye first. Then I will start looking at the icons and the font and everything after that. But that's just me personally. So
you know some like the colors and styles that you like already.
Yeah. And that's exactly how my own book cover is designed, on a black background with embers floating up from the bottom, and with a ship that's in those colors as well, with a splash of blue to make it stand out.
You want to know something really funny? So like recently I put up a I put up a post on my socials. I'm sure you saw it. I need to find where it was. But I put up a post for the cover design of my book, Last Scarecrow. Let's see, I'll throw it up. So I put up I've been using this like a pseudo cover design here. So I use this one. This isn't going to be the final cover design, but I've had 5 people reach out to me being like, I really like that cover design. I would buy that book. You should use that cover. I'm like, this is my final cover design.
Yeah, I got to admit, I picked that up myself. just from that alone, without even reading the title, I would pick that up.
Aww. Oh man, I was like, maybe I'll get like 3 different cover. I'll get 2 different cover designs. I'll use one for the paperback and then one for the hardback. It is my dream. It is my dream to design covers. Let's see, make sure I'm on the right one. It's my dream soul to design a cover, whether that's myself or hiring an artist. I'd probably hire a specialist to create a cover that has over 50 different elements in it of minor foreshadowing elements that call to the story.
Oh,
that's like I love that idea. So it like came to me in like a dream last night, and I'm like, I'm like that's so cool. Sounds
like it'd be busy.
Like a marketing and even from a storytelling of like, okay, just from this cover alone, there are 50 call outs to things in the world. Can you figure out what those 50 things are?
That would be really, I feel like it'd be busy, but depending on how you go about it, that could be really unique. I don't think I've ever seen a book cover that does more than, I want to say 5. I think that's the most.
Yeah, and I think that the challenge, right, to do something that's larger is then the scope of the design has to be something that's a larger scale in nature to make it so that way it doesn't look like it's you said, yeah, like it's like there's too much going on in it, right? It would go with choosing a style that uses a type of wide image where small elements, very, very small elements, can be put into it. Let's see. Yep. Atomic, absolutely agree. Reedsy has a marketplace which includes cover designs.
Yeah, but they wanted to charge me like $1,200, so I could not afford that.
Yeah, Reedsy's a little pricier in the market. Fiverr is the cheaper option of the gig websites. Yeah. Never forget either that an amateur is someone who does something for the love of it. It's not as negative as people make it seem, right?
Yeah.
As long as we are enjoying the process, right? I think part of it's the mindset too. I think that's a huge factor.
Oh yeah.
Courtney is like, I want to buy the art. Woo! I have a win already. I've just been using this as the cover. Like, so many people are probably going to start thinking this is the real cover of it. Oh man, maybe I'll probably put up polls eventually how people respond to it, to this one into a future version of it.
Oh, I like Atomic's last comment. That is really neat. I actually have a few books like that.
Oh, let's see. Atomic is cover art that wraps onto the back is a good option for adding extra things without. Yeah, I think that would be the way to go about it. Cover art that wraps onto the back is a good option for adding extra things without cluttering the cover. One of the things I love with series, and this is a very like common thing with book series, is when the the book, what are the edges called? I'm blanking. The book binding, the book spine is when the spines of the book cover are all of an image when you line all the books up.
Now those are neat.
I love those so much. Like when the book spines, when you have like these like large series, right? And I see publishing houses do this all the time with large book series, where when all the books are together on a shelf, the spines is all like a particular image. I think that's a really cool concept. So beautiful. So I feel like we've had some excellent conversations. I think so. This is time for us to get into a little bit of a writing sprint.
Whoop.
Wonderful. So as I cue this up, let me cue it up on my side. So if you're just hopping in, by the way, welcome to the WriteNow Writers Group. This is a weekly writing group where we meet every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Let's see where I'm at. So where we'll meet at 4 p.m. Pacific, 4, 5, 6, 7 p.m. Eastern time for us to just chat about writing. This is a virtual writers group. I've been a part of probably 10 plus writers groups in the past 10 years. Those were all in person. I wanted to bring a virtual writers group into this experience, right? Whether we're just chatting about writing and or staying motivated to work on our storytelling, that is what the WriteNow Writers Group is about. If you want to join in on the group and you want to come join us on the stream and future meetings, drop a comment or shoot me an email to Kauffman at the-creative-ghost.com. And if you're enjoying the experience, don't forget to follow and subscribe. I'm a crazy daily writing live streamer, 220 plus days of consecutive writing live streams, and many, many more to come. We have random writing sprints, the writers group like this, and we always have live events going on. This week, you're not going to want to miss out. Friday, we're going to be having a discussion about writing and mental health because mental health is so important. And then Saturday, we're going to be doing the blurb and pitch fest. So if you need help with your blurb, or let's say you maybe want feedback on it, or you just want to come be involved in the conversation, definitely come join the conversation. And then Sunday, we're going to be doing the podcast episode on writing podcasts. So we got a lot going on. I'll make sure to drop the stuff in the comments for anybody who wants to check out any of those things. They will also be in the YouTube video description after the stream. All right, so let me pull back up. I had my thing set up and then I changed the style. All right, so let me go back to the slideshow. Perfect. All right, so I got the slideshow set up. I also need to pull up we got the writing timer. So we're at 9 minutes. Let's see, what should we do? I feel like because we're at the 40-minute mark, I'm gonna say let's do 25 minutes. Feels a little more apt. We'll see if we have enough time for multiple sprints or not, but we've been having some really great conversations. So come join us for a 25-minute writing sprint. Whether you're brainstorming, writing, or editing, that's all part of the process. I'm going to throw up the music and let's write. All right. So I got 25 minutes on the clock and it's time to write now. All right, let's unmute us and come back. Woo, what a good writing sprint. I didn't actually get to write that entire time. I was doing like a little thinking on what I wanted to write, but I actually felt really successful. Definitely. For those of you who are here in the stream right now, were you able to get any part of your writing development process done, whether that was brainstorming, writing, or editing? I would love to hear it. Drop it down in the chat. I also want to have a huge welcome to Crazy. Glad you could make it. Oh, I love your YouTube profile pic, by the way. That's like looks like a super badass evil character.
Oh, nice.
But welcome. Glad you could make it. And Madeline, hello, welcome. Always love seeing some of my Twitch community over here. So we just finished up this writing sprint. What did you guys all accomplish? So what did you get done in that during that sprint?
I finished like half a chapter. I not only finished half a chapter, but I actually wrote a song, and I was actually kind of singing it along there for like a minute. So I haven't done that in forever, so it was kind of nice.
I always feel like I'm probably like cracking people up because sometimes when I put it on, I'll put my mic on mute, but I still have the music playing. But I get into the music, so then I'm kind of like rocking out. And I know like all the time I have friends and family tell me, they're like, Jared, I don't always like watch your I don't always watch the full streams, but I'll sometimes see what you're doing. And I get these very like intense or like crazy faces while I'm doing writing sprints. So I'm like, they're probably just seeing me like dancing with myself. I'm like, you know what? Music's in my heart and apparently in my head too.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Let's see, what did I accomplish? So I did not work on Last Scarecrow because I'm going to continue that editing process tomorrow. I actually decided I'm working on an article. I've been wanting to like do this for the past couple of weeks, but I've just been getting my article development process has kind of been struggling. I need to have a better system in place for it so I can get them out a little more consistently. But I think this will be a catchy title. What I've learned from 200 plus days of consecutive writing streams and one 140,000K rough draft.
Title's a little long, I have to admit.
It is a little long. It's absolutely a little long, but I think I'm trying to use it as using it as like a what I learned as the value proposition.
Yeah, no, that's definitely good.
Title. Accent. How many words did you get? Anytime I bring writers onto the stream, they're always all about word counts.
Yeah, no, I got over 700. I checked just before you unmuted me.
Woo! I was like, I got 300. So I think you beat me a little bit. Hey, if you're here in the stream, how many did you get any word counts in on that sprint? Drop it down in the chat below. Let's see. It looks like we got crazy. It was like a 133 words. Well, you also came in the middle of the sprint too, though. So totally like don't be hating on yourself. And trust me, we did a writing sprint yesterday, and I got like 5 words. No, this was on Monday's stream. I got like 5 words. I was struggling. There's been better and there's been worse. Courtney, you're like, was working on researching how to develop my personal growth with the male main character, and my mom called. Oh, you just love that. So does that ever happen to you where you like get into like the writing process and you're in it and then somebody distracts you?
I have an 8-year-old. That should be answer enough.
Yep. You know, if you have children, you're like that. The kids got to come first, right? That's a very obvious distraction. When I used to live by myself, my distraction was my cat who came over begging me for tuna. There's only like one word in the human language that she knew, and it was tuna. Let's see, Madeline, you were asking, you had a great question here. So like, how long have you been streaming like in general? 220 days specifically. I challenged myself to a goal in December to write for daily for a year. And the way that I wanted to hold myself accountable was by live streaming it. I figured that if I live stream the process, then I couldn't just not show up if I had set myself to this goal. After I reached about the 30 to 40 day mark, I kind of knew that I had a good consistency in place. And I've been live streaming writing streams every single day. So yeah, and many, many more to come. Many, many more. This has been quite a learning journey, and I've absolutely been loving it. Crazy is like music is power.
It is. It really is.
Marcelo's like, I was preparing dinner and now I'm finishing it. So I'll hop for the next sprint. Beautiful, wonderful. Hence why we do multiple sprints. That's a lot of numbers for someone like me. He was talking to my title. I was like, all right, clearly Kauffman needs a shorter title. I'll just be like, what I learned, ... Let's see. Emma was like, I was told by my editor friend I use the word as too much in my novella. So I'm trying to locate every as to see if I can improve the sentence without the word. Well, it's interesting. I think when I'm as a writer, and this is just like a nitpicky thing on my part, I try not to use more than the same type of word more than one time in any given paragraph. Does that ever happen to you, Sol?
I'm sorry, say that again.
You ever use like the same type of word like consistently too much?
Yes, and it's very annoying, and my other writing group comments on that a lot. I like when I'm writing, edit one of my previous fan fictions because I use like 3 specific words way too much, and I didn't notice until they pointed out.
If I'm in like writing a paragraph and I say like a word more than once, I'm like, all right, I have to change it. I have to find a better way to phrase it. Or like those times where I'm like, the character said, I'm like, okay, well, I don't want to use their name the same 3 times in the paragraph, like especially if it's a mix of like a dialogue tag, action, and interiority. But I'm like, okay, well, how do I refer to them in a way that doesn't use the name? I'm like, sometimes it can be a challenge, but I like that.
Yeah, if there's anything I've learned,
it's a unique word choice, right? What was that?
Yeah, I know. I use said way too often. I've been trying to do more like scoff, gas, snarl, responded. I'll try to use like similar to said if I can't say anything else. But trying to cut down on said just a little bit, and I've actually been decently successful.
I said is a hard one, especially with speech tags. I've been able to overcome it over time with just different types of speech tags, but said is a very common one. Medellin, absolutely go for it. And I try to keep the questions and stuff writing related. What do you have to ask? And if it's not writing related, you can always shoot me a whisper over on Twitch. Let's see. Soul is a typing demon. You're getting a commendation here, Soul.
Oh, yeah.
You and your, what was that? You said 800 word count?
700, just over 700 words. And I have done 3.5 chapters today. So, yeah, no, I'm definitely a typing demon for like 2 months straight.
You are making great progress, my friend. I feel like that's where I was at on Sunday when I was writing through the end of Last Scarecrow.
Oh, yeah. And also, I forgot, that's not including I finished the prologue to Transfer today, one of my other novel works.
Oh, that's
great. Actually what I sent awesome you for the critique.
So much progress. That's awesome that you're making so much progress. What's been like one of the key things that works for you for getting such a high word count on these?
For one, I'm having fun. That is the biggest thing is I am having fun. I am doing lately. I've been doing mostly fan fiction, and I've been focusing on One Piece, which I am obsessed with. Seriously, there's my collection. But it's just mainly fun, and then also, I mean, I'm graduating in a month with my creative writing degree finally. And this month, I'm doing 2 different classes. One of them is a portfolio class, and we have to beef up, our portfolios. And so I'm trying to get more work done that shows off my personal writing style. And in 2.5 months, I have finished 14 different stories. And that's not including all the stuff I've been doing for homework, as well as working on my game writing company. So, I mean, I am more motivated than ever because, I mean, I'm about to get my degree finally after procrastinating for years. So I would like to have something to show with that when I actually start looking for professional jobs, which I'm doing that already, but I'd like to have a little bit more.
I remember that journey well, my friend. I remember that well. And I also graduated with a creative writing degree. Like, what types of jobs for creative writers? And this was always the vibe. This was always the thing that I hated. This was about 10 years ago of that. Okay. So if you graduate with an arts degree, the expectation, at least this was over in LA, Hollywood area as a screenwriter, is that to go work a 9-to-5 job during the day, and then to work on your creativity, your writing at night. To then get into a writer's room, to get into some type of studio setting. But I'm like, well, what I think what I've learned now is like, well, there's so much more that you can do online. And we're at a point in the internet where there's so much opportunity. So I've come so far in that journey.
Yesterday,
personally.
I was in a job fair where somebody actually came in and they were a freelance writer for DreamWorks. And they actually talked about what got them into it. Because somebody asked, what got you started in this? Improv. They were in an improv group, and a lot of their networks originally started in that group, I guess. At least that's I think that's how they said it. But they met those people, they knew those people, they started talking to them, they got introduced to other people, and they started networking not through jobs, but through people they met in an improv group. And I mean, granted, some people can easily do that, but nowadays, you're right, it's online. People can join Facebook groups, they can join Discords, they can join all kinds of meetups, and it is so much easier to network nowadays than it used to be. The whole work 9 to 5 and then do your art at night thing is still a little true from what I've seen. People still kind of look down on the arts, which is really disappointing. But the world seems to be opening up a little more to it. Writers seem to be having a little harder time of it, but I think part of that is there are so many of us out there that want to break into specific fields. Now, granted, for myself, I'm starting my own game company. I'm wanting to be an indie game developer, an indie game writer. I'm not competing with anybody but myself almost, at least not like in a traditional sense.
Well, but I think that's also a really good, that's a good outlook to have. That's a really great mentality to view it, to come at it from the point of you're competing with yourself at heart, at the core of it.
If you compete with others, I think you just look down on yourself.
Yeah, I see that a lot with artists, writers, specifically writers, especially when they're still trying to working in their first book out. And they're comparing to what other writers are achieving or other books, and they're comparing to a point in time. They're not comparing the full journeys.
Yeah,
I see that a lot.
I think sometimes that's kind of what took me so long is I was looking at myself and Pirates and how much it was changing, and I hadn't settled on something. And I keep seeing all these books come out that were so interesting. And I think subconsciously I might have actually been comparing myself to these other books coming out. And it's like, why? And until my husband rang the shame bell.
Like,
and
I think everyone does it. I mean, like, use it as motivation. Like, it's great if it works as motivation.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's only a problem if it starts being used as a determining factor for either self-esteem, for like a lack of self-esteem, or it prohibits you from writing, right? So I think that just comes down to understanding motivation and reasoning. But let's see. We have some really great comments on here. Let's see. Crazy, you're like, technically, I'm not about words. I get too much into the world of the book I'm writing. That's a beautiful thing. You should have seen me crazy on some of these streams over the past 7 months. Like, everyone, even Soul, you can probably like attribute. There were some streams where I was like really crazy in my like writing points. Like,
yeah,
when I off one of my characters, I think I was like crying on the stream, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure it's a normal thing for writers to do. I was probably talking to myself at points. I'm like, yeah, he's a weird writer. I'm like,
I don't recall seeing that, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Like, it's because I was a little box, so it only the people who were actually really looking at my face could tell. I was like, oh, all right, good. Nobody saw that except I just called it out. All right, next comment. Courtney, I live with toddlers. I normally can still keep going, but not mom. But not mom. No, she knows when I'm working and talking. I know I can still, but not mom. Gotcha. Yeah, and I think anyone with kids, like that's a whole, I think responsibility, right? And clearly, I don't have kids, but I know Soul was have to figure out which side of the screen. So I know you do. And I think it goes into those list of pre-existing responsibilities we have in life, whether we have a family, whether we are a student, whether we have a job. I think it's balancing the responsibilities with life with the thing we're passionate about, with our hobbies like writing, and then trying to figure out how do I make it consistent so I don't get burnt out in 3 months. Let's say Courtney, like, I really hope you don't get burnt out because I'm living for these lives. Aw. Courtney, I'm really glad that these are bringing a lot of value to you. I can promise you, with 220 consecutive days under my belt, I'm not going to get burnt out anytime soon. I thought really early on that I might, when I was about 40, 45 days in, I thought that I really might be, but for me, like, these live streams have kind of become a kind of like consistent ritual in my life, in both the motivation that all of you guys bring me, and like, especially Soul, you've been here with me from very early on back in January, February. And the number of times where I just felt like no motivation to write, and I would show up and everyone would just like say really cool things and like inspire me. And I'd be like, yeah, I love that, because I'm like trying to build a community here. So I think that was cool. Thank you. Well, slowly but surely, we're growing. Well, this will be the coolest writing community to ever grace the internet. The in terms of like long term, I've committed to daily live streams up through the end of the year, because that's my year-long goal. Beyond the year, like, I know, like, long term, a couple years down, live streaming every day, I don't know if that's sustainable from a mental health perspective. So as I get into year 2, I'll probably reassess where like the WriteNow community, where those priorities are, where my business priorities are, and finding balance. But I don't know. I could also hit like Soul. I could hit like the 366 day mark, and I could be like, okay, well, now I just want to keep going and see how long I can go without breaking the chain. One of my gaming streamers that I watch was he said he's live streamed every single day for 10 years. And I was like, dang, that's an accomplishment. I'm like, are there any world records out there for most consistent, the highest number of consecutive writing live streams? I'm like, maybe I can try to set a world record.
That would be
writing live streams. Maybe that's what I'll do. I'm just like giving myself ideas here. And Courtney, that was all thanks to you. Let's see, crazy. Like, I get into typing demon when I'm really into the world of the book I'm writing. Yeah, no, I'm the same exact way. Absolutely. I'll use too much of suddenly this or suddenly that. I forgot which writer said that. There was a writer who said that they hated the use of suddenly. Like, okay, so let's give an example here. So let's say a character. I'll use Scarecrow because he's on my mind. So example, Scarecrow was. These are two characters on my mind. Scarecrow was afraid. The fire demon showed up and tried to burn the Scarecrow alive. The fire demon showed up and tried to burn the Scarecrow alive. So you see the action there is clear, right? The fire demon showed up and tried to burn the Scarecrow alive. Yep. But what this writer was thinking was like, suddenly the fire demon showed up and tried to burn the Scarecrow alive.
Yeah.
There are times where, in theory, it's technically just adding an additional word. Why use the word suddenly when you can let the action speak for itself?
That's what my other writing group has said, because I used to use suddenly a lot myself, and that's exactly what they told me is let the action happen, and don't use the extra word to build up to it.
But a lot of times when we're in the process of writing, like, I would have written, like, in the rough draft, I could have written suddenly, because I'm like, okay, because I want something crazy. Suddenly is a great way to set it up. But then when we pull back from it and we're like, we actually look at it, I'm like, just focus on the action, right? Because the more words, we want to use a unique range of words, but the more words we add, the more it chances pulling the reader out of the present moment. And that's the one thing we don't want to happen. We want our readers to be so engaged that they have to know what the ending is. And then they're crying in the end because book 2 needs to be out sooner.
Yep.
Let's see. I've heard to use said more than others. So said's a harder one to break. I think for me, if I knew there was a word that I used too much, I would either go onto ChatGPT or Google and be like, give me 30 different words that I can use instead of this word.
Yeah,
I would
I've
read
done
all
that.
those words and then I'd just be like, okay, just use that for the future. Or I would learn one new word a day. As part of my writing process, whenever I started writing, if I know that's a problem for me, right before I started my writing session, I would Google what is one word that I could use differently than said. And then during that writing sprint, I would be like, okay, I'm going to try to use this word at least once. And I think if I did that at the beginning of every sprint, in time, I would grow from it. Because the goal isn't perfection. The goal isn't to become incredible overnight. The goal for me anyways, and one of the things I loved that Mr. Beast said was that the goal is to become 0.01% better every single day. Because in the long term, you will see results.
Oh, yeah.
And that was something that I absolutely loved. Let's see. Courtney, like, how do people write more than one story at a time? I would have them all connected too much. It's interesting. A lot of writers usually are working on multiple projects at a time.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually a very common thing. So I've experienced myself at previous points in my journey, so I understand it. So I know you right now, you tend to work on more projects at a time. You can probably speak to this. I've
currently got 12 different projects.
There we go. And you see, that's common. This is actually a very common thing for writers. Why so many stories at one time, and why not just focusing on one story?
Well, for one, 2 of them are technically part of the Pirate series, so I kind of have to work on those all together. I have to make sure all the books connect correctly. So Shifting Flame and Raging Inferno, yeah, I'm technically working on those at the same time. In fact, actually, I've got the storyline mostly done for Raging Inferno, and I've not even gotten through the entire rough draft of the Shifting Flame yet. There's also
that also makes sense because you're still, even though it's a couple of different books, that's within the same world.
There's another trilogy.
Books of different series.
Yeah, there's another trilogy I'm working on that it's 3 books technically, but it's all interconnected. Then I've got Transfer, Animal Instincts. I've got several different fan fictions I'm working on that I'm really trying to finish. And I mean, I will admit, it is difficult to actually work on all of those at once, and I do tend to jump around a little bit. But part of that is because I'll use actually one of my fan fictions right now that I'm really struggling with. I hate the character. The character I'm writing the point of view from, I can't stand him. I can't stand him. So I actually took a break and I started a different fan fiction until I could get through this other character's point of view, which I still have not done after 2 weeks, and it's starting to frustrate me, but it's giving me a chance to step back, take a break from him. And I have been rewatching One Piece like mad, trying to figure out how I'm going to write him without making it overly obvious I hate him. But so that's why I tend to jump around, is I'm stuck on one specific project and I need to work on a different one so that I'm at least doing something.
And I see that with a lot of writers. I think the common theme that I see is that writers follow what they're inspired by. And obviously, most of us probably have different projects going on. And I think writers like to hop between different projects to keep it fresh. I think at heart of it. For Courtney, I've worked on multiple projects in my life as well. Last Scarecrow, this is probably the first time where I've consistently stuck to only one project throughout this process. And I think part of it for me, at least with Last Scarecrow, part of it is because it's a live stream format. So like, okay, I've kind of like committed to it. But then the other part is I'm just like, I'm motivated and I'm inspired by it. And the further I get into it, the closer I get to it being my first published book. Not the first piece of writing I've had online, but the first official published book. And I think part of that's a little inspirational to me. I've also had a problem for not being able to finish a lot of things before. There's things that I have finished, but I know that's been a greater problem. So I think being able to overcome that for myself is another achievement. And I think like I haven't felt there's been days where I haven't felt like writing. There hasn't been a single day where I thought about like, okay, I need to take a break from Last Scarecrow. I've been motivated and inspired from it since January 1st.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Great question. Crazy is like I'm mainly able to finish about 3 chapters a day. That's awesome. That's some really great consistency. Crazy. Sounds like you have a really great story that you're working on. Courtney said, I started a business that has no competition, and it's almost harder because I'm trying to get people to see its worth or its use.
Yeah, that can be a struggle.
Yeah, and I think a lot of time with businesses, and I'm a new business owner going strong for about 7 to 8 months now. I think the challenge that we're faced, right? And especially if you have no competition, that's actually a really great thing. If you found a business and a field that has zero competition, that gives you an extreme edge. Now, I think the challenge always comes down to how do I educate my target market or my potential customer or client from making them see that this is a problem that I can achieve, that I can help them solve. And I think that's part of the whole business strategy. I'm definitely no expert or anything, simply an enthusiast, and a student.
And that actually kind of does relate to writing in one way. You need to find a niche, but if the niche is too obscure, it makes it more difficult. But you need to try to balance it between something completely new and original, but also something familiar enough it draws people in. So really not that different from writing a book if you think about it.
I'd agree 100%. Marcella, you're like, I'm sure you can see this in the draft I sent you, but I tend to have trouble knowing when to break up sentence with commas or periods. Probably have too many run-ons. Yeah, so one of I'm taking a look at Marcella's one of her at her story. And I think what I always see is, especially in early drafts, there tends to be a lot more like grammar, punctuation, opportunities, and errors. But I think that's all right with early drafts. When I'm like going through an early draft, like I know Last Scarecrow is going to have a lot of punctuation problems. But for me personally, like I don't worry about the punctuation portion of it until a later draft. The reason being, and this is why with the different types of edits, if the developmental edit needs to happen first, because let's say that you fix all the punctuation in your story, and then you have an editor come in and they're like, okay, well, this 20% of the book just doesn't make sense, or this 20% of the story doesn't make sense. You need to change it. If I've already taken the time to do all the punctuation, but now I have to do all this rewriting, I've now wasted my time. So and I know that's a little bit of a standard why the punctuation portion of it tends to come closer to the end after the developmental portion. The story itself is clear and sound. Tomic says the best way to have a great idea is to have lots of ideas. Linus Pauling, great quote, my friend. I know for me, I have a thing on my phone where whenever I get an idea, I'm always tracking ideas. I'm of the mindset, no ideas are bad ideas. They might not be effective and you might not like them, but if you track everything, it could lead to having something awesome.
Yeah. I actually saw something that relates to that in a writing group the other day, is how do you know if an idea is worth pursuing? And I mean, granted, this is, personal for everyone. Everyone has their own way of doing it. Mine is, if an idea sticks in my head for 10 minutes, it is worth at least looking at. If I'm still thinking of it 20 minutes later, it is worth pursuing deeper. And then if I'm still thinking of it 30 minutes later, well, yeah, no, I'm pretty much going to be writing the story. That's how I've looked at it every single time. And
I like that. I really like that.
If I can at least think of the beginning, I am set to write the story itself. Most of the time, I try to think of the ending first, or at least a general idea of how it might end. But if I can at least think of a beginning, it's worth it. And I've had some ideas that have, for example, the fan fiction I'm writing right now. I had the idea of using a Lunarian character from One Piece like a month ago, but I couldn't use him because I couldn't think of a good story. I had a good introduction for him. I had a good start to the story, but I had to use that start for a different character. But the
That
story
makes
I started
sense.
today, I could finally introduce my Lunarian character because I had a story, but I couldn't think of a main character. And then I'm thinking about it, and it's like, wait a minute. I have a character sitting in the back burner that I really want to use. He would fit in perfectly with this. It's actually turning out really well. So
I like that. Sometimes where that idea, character, setting, theme, world needs to be written at the right time when we're ready.
Yep.
And with that being said, I just want to throw up ML's comment. You're saying, can I share a link for 470 ways to avoid saying said? Absolutely. You should drop that in the comments. I think a lot of people would actually get value out of that, because I know
you mean everyone.
said is literally a like very common problem for most writers. I'd love to see that article. So we're hitting the hour and a half mark, Soul. I'm still feeling pretty inspired. Do you want to try to go for one more sprint?
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
Let's do it. So we're not going too long. I think what I'm going to do is we'll do this as a 20-minute sprint instead, so we can kind of stick to a 2-hour mark. So we'll do a 20 minutes. Let's see what we can do. Perfect. I'm going to throw back up the screen. Feel free to join us, whether you are brainstorming, writing, or editing. That's all part of the story development process. Just let us know if you're trying to tap the link, ML, when you share it, and if it's not clickable. Sometimes YouTube does mess with links because they don't want you to leave the platform. Hey, what's up, Tiara? We're just about to hop into a second writing sprint. Come join us. Okay, so I got 20 minutes on the clock, and let's cue up the timer. It's time to write now. All right. Writing sprint done. There we go. Perfect. So writing sprint all done. Wonderful. 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 We got some great work. Kauffman got distracted and did very little writing and went down a rabbit hole. But before we get to the to our progress, I think I want to make an official announcement as thanks from our as thanks for a reminder in the group chat or in the chat. I've been meaning to make moderators for a while. So I want to make this the official announcement that the first 3 moderators of the Right Now YouTube channel, Soul, you're one of them.
Okay.
Soul, Penelope, and Atomic for being the most consistent and having been here with me from the beginning. And I know all 3 of you align with our values. So that's just first 3 mods of the channel. I appreciate all y'all. Really, the only thing you get to do is you get cool mod tags, and you can help me kick people from the chat if they're being a little inappropriate.
Awesome. I have too much fun with that.
If we get any of those feisty trolls in the chat. So so I wanted to just make that official announcement because I think that's super cool. And then when we get the channel to 500 subscribers, that's the first milestone for YouTube. Then I'll open up channel memberships. And one of the cool things for channel memberships is you can create logos. You can create little logos for icons for people.
Oh, cool.
So on the eventually we're getting there. I'm at what for 380. I think I'll be coming up to 400 probably in the next couple of weeks. So slowly but surely. Woo, crazy. Yay, woo, mods. Congrats, mods. I had to do the dishes. So can I give cups, plates, and silverware? Well, ML, even if you got 10 cups, 5 plates, and a partridge in a pear tree, that's still more words than I got. I got distracted with the mod rabbit hole. 400, let's go. I know everyone subscribe. We'll get to 400 in no time, I swear. Oh man. It's cool. It's cool. We'll get there. Let's see. Penelope. Troll banking good stuff. Ooh, troll bonking good stuff. So we're gonna use our wrenches to bonk those trolls. You know, after 7 months, so after 7 months of live streaming, the number of trolls that I've had show up in the chat, I could say I've had 3 trolls. 1 who was just extremely inappropriate, and then 2 who kind of like tried to lead up to it. But yeah, I'd say I've had 3 consistent trolls over 7 months. They'll come. That's just the nature of the internet. But I think the great thing with this industry, with the writing, the art, the creative industry, is I think that the negativity isn't as bad out there as it is with some other industries. The gaming industry, the trolls like really bad. So I'm just grateful for that.
That's an understatement.
Corny is like 256 words because my husband wants to talk. I think, Courtney, that just means tomorrow will be a better word sprint day. Yeah. My word sprint today was just all right. I think I barely pushed 300 today. Oh, Maris, are you getting the cold? Cold suck. Maybe you it's just a sign that your body just needs some recovery time. So then you can go into these like cold flu-induced dreams and come up with better ideas for the stories.
Yeah, I gotta say for my last sprint, I got another 700.
Oh, so you're so good with your you and your consistency are good. Literally, I need to not get distracted. Oh man, yeah. You definitely beat me. I'm still stuck at my below 300 word count for the day. It's okay. I'm giving myself a pseudo break this week, though. I'm not putting on too much pressure since I just finished my rough draft. So I don't feel super horrible about it. Hence another reason why I have all these crazy streams planned this week. But yeah, overall I feel good. I know Marcella, you're saying I was listing out elements I want to flesh out more, working on my second draft. Can't wait to go over it with you. Yeah, I'm pretty far into it, Marcella. It's really, really cool. I love looking at different writers like stories and different writers as scripts, stories, worlds. I think that's one of the things that I love about my my writing coaching business. For any of you who don't know, outside of the WriteNow YouTube channel, outside of my social media, I also have a business called The Creative Ghost, where I offer writing services, coaching, editing, and ghostwriting. And alpha beta reading as a portion of it. But essentially, one of the things that I love is I love working with writers and helping them get their stories to that next level. So I'm trying to figure out like what each of them are at a different range. So I'm trying to figure out how do I put myself in a spot to be as affordable as possible. So
yeah, that's really the trick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was like, I've been doing different price ranges for all of them, and it's definitely been a learning process. But one of the not a YouTuber, an influencer, I was listening to lately, one of their theories was that you should only price yourself as either the cheapest option or the most expensive option. Because if you put yourself in the middle, nobody wants the second to cheapest or the third to cheapest. Or if somebody's looking for a luxury brand, they don't want something that's going to be a mediocre quality. They want literally the best.
That's
tend to go.
Actually a good point.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. It was a way I haven't looked at it before. Let's see. Brainstorming with sticky notes. Love it. Love it. I was like literally desolate. If you could see my desk, I literally have like so many sticky notes. Because I have a really small setup in here. So I literally have been using sticky notes for everything. Since my whiteboards are a little less accessible, but I'm always pro sticky notes. I think when I find a writing software to partner with, I'm going to try to find one where I can have all the virtual sticky notes on it. I really like that idea.
That'd be really neat.
Mm-hmm. I know it's in I've seen it in some of the scripts development software. Like I think it's in Final Draft, but I need to see. I'm sure there's elements in some of the popular ones.
There's got to be at least somewhere, or like maybe like something that you can download and install with it.
This craziest comment made me crack up. Let me guess the word sprint. So I was able to do 5 books.
That's a bit much.
Hey, that's a bit much. I only did 4.5.
Well, I mean, hey, I did finish chapter 3, and I got all the way into like a third way into chapter 4. So,
woo. Well, hey, you're making great progress. Like this is a good problem to have if we're at that writing consistency.
Well, you say that, but I have dishes and laundry.
Well, you see, because here's the thing, life will always change eventually because that's just the nature of life. So when you're in those periods of your life where whether it's days, weeks, months, or years, like follow the creativity, follow the inspiration, and write it through as long as possible. And then be okay with taking a break when life happens, right? And I think that's the thing to focus on. Let's see. Mary said sent chapter 5 heading into 6. So Mary's referring to our Saturday stream, the Story and Critique show. So you guys know we're taking a break from the Story and Critique show this Saturday to dive into the first Saturday stream of the Blurb and Pitch Fest. So we're going to be focusing on book blurbs, on story, on script pitches. If you need help developing a blurb for your story, I need to remember to copy the link. It's down in the YouTube description. So click on the link in the YouTube description. Or if you want feedback on one, click on the link. There's a little form for you to fill out. So we'll be doing a deep dive into book blurbs on Saturday. And then I'll return with the critique show next weekend. So we'll definitely return. Our critique show is always really fun. I've been just trying to ask myself, I've been trying to find ways to mix it up. Just to give a little bit more variety to our Saturdays, because the Sunday's pretty dedicated to the podcast.
Right.
And my podcast guests are booked out through the fall and into the winter almost. Let's see. But it would be, what word did I get? I wish I could. ML's like, I wish I could use text to speech, but the Eastern Kentucky, I think. Kentucky, right? KY. Accent has it putting out some messed up stuff. Is it too funny at what it types? ML, I feel like you've got like a whole like little story there. That actually feels like a story of a writer trying to write a story, but using text to speech. And the text to speech comes up with like a completely different story. That sounds like a really funny joke.
Yeah, I can actually kind of imagine that because I've tried like speaking French into my Duolingo, and sometimes it's like a text to speech, it's a speech to text, and I have no idea what it's trying to say. It's like I can imagine it.
I absolutely love this conversation going in here. Tom's like, I told AI to write me 10 books. AI can write 100 books in like 2 minutes. They will beat me every time in terms of speed. They're like, go so. No, he was joking. But ML made a great comment and was like, who needs Chat GBT when you have Chat GB Soul?
Funny.
I think that this is going to be Chat GB Soul. They're like, I need some help. I just need a little soul in my life. I feel like we have like a running ad here. Like, is your story struggling? I think you need a little soul in your story.
Hey, what's funny is one thing I'm actually looking into is being a developmental editor. So,
well, there you go. Clearly, we've got your marketing. We've got your marketing shtick already.
I might
you
actually
develop
use
your
that.
story. Well, it's time to add a little soul to it. Yeah, you could go so many puns with soul. Actually, you really could.
I really don't want to. I'm not much of a pun person, but that one I might use.
I'm a little punny. My humor borders on dad jokes sometimes, and the cleverness, and a small percentage of the time.
God, you get along with my husband.
I accept it and know where my humor's at. Actually, one of my problems with my dramatic storytelling and with things like Last Scarecrow is knowing that I need humor in it. A story without humor, like it's just not going to work. It doesn't have to be comedy, but there needs to be humor in situations.
Yeah.
Because you have to find the balance. I know there's very little humor in the rough draft of Last Scarecrow. So I know humor is a weakness of mine. So I know in the next iteration, there's actually going to be 2 characters who I'm going to play more into the comedic element. I'm actually going to make Crow more of a little bit more of a comedic character. And then I'm going to make one of my later characters Skunk. I want to have a clever character. So that's definitely in my second draft. Let's see. Mary, blurbs are tricky. Yeah, I personally never found blurbs to be that difficult, but I know a lot of writers out there, and I've seen a lot of messaging things that blurbs are challenging. So I thought, like, what better way for us to actually, we'll have a discussion about blurbs, into the theory behind crafting blurbs. We'll look into some best-selling books with blurbs and why they're effective, and then we'll also review any of the submitted blurbs. So it'll be a cool little deep dive.
Might actually submit my own blurb then, because
because I remember you were working on yours a while back. Absolutely,
well,
I remember your
the
original
next one that I've got is a dual point of view. So I mean, it's a little trickier because I'm including 2 different characters. So
you absolutely should. I'll also be inviting people back onto the stream if they want to come submit their blurb. I'm still trying to figure out if I want to just if individual people want the option to hop on when they do their blurb to talk about it, or do a group thing. Still figuring it out. TBD.
Yeah.
Let's see. When I ask chat, so Cordy, when I ask for ice cream, it sounds like ass cream. Chat GBT. The writer wants some ice cream. The writer wants ass cream. You're like, okay, Chat GBT. Text to speech. Not very helpful. Jared has to do the voiceover. That's perfect.
Gotta agree with that.
There we go. I was like, I'll open up voiceover services for to add to my repertoire. Clearly, y'all know I love doing voiceover. Love reading your stories on Saturdays.
Oh yeah.
I think it lets me speak to my acting background. I was an actor for quite a while, but I never felt like I was a particularly strong actor. I was always a better writer, so I really pursued it as a hobby. Wait, I'm sorry, Soul. You might be getting the soul puns for a little while now.
Yeah, I know. I know.
It's okay. If I could make my name punny, I would.
God.
Let's see. Marcella, don't I know it? My story is set in Quebec and I have English and French characters. Sometimes when I'm bored, I have it read it, and it's always a good time when it gets to all the Franglish. Atomic's got a good one. The humidity was unbearable. Can we stop and get ice cream with the climber?
That is
awesome. Oh man. Apparently everybody's wanting some ass cream today, or at least ChatGPT thinks we do. I go too hard with the grandpa voices. Yeah, this past Saturday, because we had two grandpa excerpts or with grandpa characters, I feel like I almost lost my voice. I had fun, but clearly I don't realize it till after the fact. Penelope, my blurbs are all like, in a world where Okay. In a world where wizard lizards are looking for love, can two iguanas make it back to Galapagos 9 on half a tank of gas? Jared starts voice acting. 1 week later, all streams are now silent, so he can save his voice. I'll be like, where I'll just do what's that ASMR? I'll just do an ASMR stream where I just pretend to talk the entire time and only do sound effects, and people, that ASMR audience would probably still like it.
Oh yeah.
And I'll just do like typing things. But it'll be all to save my voice when I become a famous voice actor. Thanks, Atomic. I like the suggestions. WTC, I just sent over my blurb for my first book, but it was submitted when the form was a single sentence field, so I hope it looks okay. That's totally no worries. I realized in the blurb submission that I had the short form. It was the short form answer instead of the paragraph answer. So even if it came out kind of funky, I can always just copy and paste it and fixed it. No worries. I had fixed it since. You just sit there and move your mouth and the mods can make the rest. Mistake. No, that's METEK. Meet the rest. Meter the rest. Okay. Exactly, right? This is why I have mods now. So that way now I just don't have to do any work. I just can show up and look pretty, right? Penelope, I like your thinking. Good call. Kauffman just shows up to be the cute face. Mystery Science Theater 3K. Okay. So we are having some absolutely phenomenal discussions. Today has been an absolutely great episode, or great meeting. This was a really good meeting, so I feel like we've had some like extremely dynamic discussions in the writers chat. So for those of you who don't know, we meet every Wednesday. The WriteNow community, the WriteNow writers group, will be every Wednesday, this time, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. If you want to join us on future WriteNow writers group meetings, either drop a comment or shoot me an email, and I'll include you in the group members invite. So this has been really good. Soul, thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, of course. It's always fun.
I appreciate it. It's I love being inspired and defeated by your word count.
Well, hey, I'm not doing it on purpose, if that makes you feel any better with that. So
hey, but this is good. I would much rather you be writing a lot than struggling like me today. So but I feel successful. I have 3 mods now who can do all the work for me. So
just make us do all the work then.
Like, Jared, why do you look so weird on this next stream? It's going to be AI Jared. It'll become faceless Kauffman. Okay. Well, so awesome. Thanks for joining. And for those of you who are there in the stream, thank you for joining us today on today's WriteNow live stream. We have so many more cool streams coming up this week. Like I said, Friday is a chat about mental health. Saturday is going to be our blurb and critique show. link down in the chat, in the YouTube chat, if you want to come submit your blurb or you want to come join the discussion. And then Sunday is going to be with a bigger writing brand about how they started a successful writing podcast. They're called Releasing Your Inner Dragon. So definitely come join. And if you're not subscribed, smash that button, because that way you'll be alerted when we go live. All right, beautiful. It has been quite a pleasure today. And that brings us to this part of the stream. Don't forget, tap that like button on the way out. Help us show the algorithms that writing streams are cool. And that, my friends, is all that I got for you. Don't forget, words are wind, but stories are forever. I'm Kauffman, and I'll catch you on the morrow. Early stream tomorrow, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. Take care, my friends. Stay creative.